Welcome, everyone, to the Union Federation podcast, where we discuss both Star Trek and the Orville here on the Fandom Podcast Network. And I'm really excited because this week we are diving deep, of course, into Star Trek PICARD Season 3. This is episode 17 Seconds. So make sure you've seen the episode. So here is your spoiler warning. All right. Okay, let's just get right into it. First of all, got to start off by saying this. I'm hoping to give a very good show today. Been a little nervous, but I've learned of late that one must access calm as much as fire. And so I've been saying, as we humans say, I'm working on myself. So let's get the rest of this awesome crew back in here. With me always is my co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network, Mr. Kyle Wagner. What's up, buddy?
I am doing well. I have brought you some chamomile tea for this week's episode.
Sugar, please.
But Kevin, I've brought along somebody else with me, and I might have killed us all. I'm just saying, we're doing this.
Do you want to be specific? Because there's two people in waiting that kind of want to know the answer to that question.
Well, one, I get more concerned about what she will do to other people, but the other one, if I may introduce him, he is the host, of course, of the wonderful Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast on the Fandom Podcast Network, and does some amazing things of his own on social media with the Spacebook. But yeah, I brought him on the bridge, and I think it might kill us all. It's of course the wonderful Mr. Dan Hadley.
Yeah, you've told me don't touch anything, don't sit on anything, don't do anything. Just stand and look at the view screen. Yeah.
Well, no, we might let you sit in the chair in the corner. It is extra spinny.
Oh, no, I like that. That'll do. I'm like a kid, man. That'll keep me occupied for at least 5 minutes.
Dan, it is so good to have you on Union Federation talking Star Trek. You know, I know you are the host of our Doctor Who podcast, Type 40, on the Fandom Podcast Network, and you've been doing an excellent job doing that. We've done some other projects together, so it's good to have you, man.
It was great to be here. It's blowing the sort of cobwebs off a little bit. I haven't talked about Star Trek with you guys for quite a long time, come to think of it, if ever. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to getting stuck into it all.
All right. Well, we still have one of our regulars to join us here, and I'd like to welcome the Oracle and Science Officer of the Union Federation Starship, the lovely Haley. How are you?
I'm doing well, although I may start melting. I've been away from the Great Link for a while.
Yeah, you got to get in your little jar, basically.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, I have to say. So it's over there.
Amy Nelson, our first officer and counselor, is still coming off of her wonderful Star Trek cruise trip. So she's probably having a Star Trek cruise hangover right now, I'm guessing. So we'll get her on back soon. And please also make sure you guys check out the BQN over there. This is Star Trek PICARD, the final season. And like I said, spoiler alert, guys, we're going to get ready and get into the episode. But first, we got a little bit of news. All right. As I mentioned, guys, we've got some news. And I don't know if I'm kind of surprised. So I don't know. Let's get right into it. Kyle, you brought this to my attention first here. And I wanted to start off by saying I got an article here from Trek Central. Paramount Plus has announced that Star Trek Discovery is ending with its upcoming 5th season. Additionally, the 5th and final season has been pushed to early 2024. Therefore, it will debut later than expected. It's understood that filming is mostly completed on Discovery 5. However, according to Variety, additional filming will occur in the upcoming months. Originally announced in November of 2015, the series debuted in 2017 on CBS All Access. Remember that, guys? The former brand name of Paramount Plus. Series star Sonequa Martin Green shared some of her words about her time as Captain Michael Burnham. Additionally, series creatives Alex Kurtzman and Michelle Paradise have shared their thoughts on the end of Star Trek Discovery leading up to a final season. Paramount Plus will honor the show's groundbreaking storytelling over its last 4 seasons with a year-long celebrations and appearances at key events and markets worldwide. So, guys, it feels like that they're going to take their time on this and do additional reshoots. And Kyle, you and I were kind of wondering what was going on here, because why are they pushing it back to 2024? With all of the other shows kind of trying to squeeze in this year, I kind of feel they didn't have an empty spot for the beginning of 2024 since PICARD's not coming back. And they want to celebrate this crew with appearances and stuff. Give me your take on this.
I'm not surprised by this. I've had a feeling for a while that the 5th season could very well be the last season of Star Trek Discovery. It just felt like they were getting to that point within the storytelling. And you look at the length of seasons on streaming, 5 seems to be about the magic number anymore. The other thing is just let's be honest. Discovery's been maybe the most divisive Star Trek show in a good while when it comes to the fan base. It seems to be a love it or hate it kind of relationship with it. I think the bigger surprise to me with all of this is the fact it isn't coming until 2024. And maybe it's because we were coming off of such a run of basically Star Trek every day, every week for almost a year, and now we are having gaps here. So I'm very curious about this. And I know there's other things going on with Paramount Plus that I think are affecting Star Trek right now, but it seems like it's time, but it's still weird timing of when they're putting out this season.
Hadley, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, as Tom Petty says, the waiting is the hardest part. No, I'm not surprised by this either.
Hold on. It's the way is the hardest part.
I don't want to get in trouble, so that's why I didn't sing it. But kind of not surprised either. I think that going in, I kind of had a feeling they probably wouldn't run for anything longer than 5 seasons. So, and as Kevin was saying, or as Kyle was saying, it is a divisive show. Some people love it and some people don't love it. And so I'm not surprised either. I think that they will get to this point in the storytelling where, like with the end of TNG, we can just kind of picture that they're off and it's still there, but it's not being filmed. We're not going to see it, but they're still going to be off in the universe just doing whatever kind of stuff. Kind of like DS9, like they all left and their stories all continue. Like, people just go on. It's just not going to be shown to us. So,
right. Now I'm part of the group that, and I've been pretty critical on this show. I had high hopes for it when it started, and it's tried. What I find sad for me anyway is that it's got a great cast. And they're great they're great ambassadors to the fans. They're great to each other. I'm not a fan of the direction that the show went. And there's been a few really good moments of character interaction and a few good moments of tension and drama, but the overall arc, and we've talked about the season arcs that they've had and how some of them have just fallen flat. Dan, I assume you're probably in the similar boat as I am here, because I don't want to bash the show, but I did want to say that there is definitely, as Kyle alluded to, it's either you love it or hate it type of thing, but it has not been the show that everyone has rallied around. Your thoughts on the news of Star Trek Discovery and its final season?
Well, you can't bash it. You're the genial host, so I will. Long past time this show was put out of its misery. How it got a 4th season is absolutely beyond me. It is a terrible show. It has been since they lost Brian Fuller, in my opinion. It's struggled ever since. They've had flourishes of inspiration, of creativity, and there have been fleeting moments when this show mattered. It's got some great talent on screen, but they've never really been given any material to do anything of any real note with anything worth watching. I would imagine that if you mopped up all the tears that have been shed on various across the bridge and in the corridors of the Discovery, mop that all up, rinsed it all out, and sort of packaged it off, you could send it away somewhere, and it would probably cure a drought in some small nation somewhere where they struggle, don't get enough water. I don't know. Yes, this should never have got past Series 3. It's been an absolutely shocking show. I'm happy on one hand. I'm trying to be pragmatic here and a bit more generous. The idea that they're going to spend a year going out on a bit of a tour for the people who do enjoy it, because there are at least a dozen people out there who really enjoy this show, and if they can find them and corral them and give it a good send off for those people, I get that. For me, I don't listen to what they say. I've seen there's a couple of very florid quotes from Mr. Kurtzman, Michelle Paradise, and Sonequa Martin Green. I don't know if they've written them themselves, who knows. In my view, forget about what they say, watch what they do. This show, I think it's been cut short. I think it's a mercy killing, and any material they're about to film, they were probably all out of contract. They've gone back to film the last episode or two and just get rid of this, because they know what's working. They know this divided people, and in their heart of hearts, I think they know why. They're going to want to move past it as soon as possible. But the reason why, in my view, they've held off is so they can say to everybody, "Oh, look, it lasted 7 years," like Deep Space Nine, TNG, and all this. It's all publicity. It's all to make it look a particular way. This show's been a massive creative failure. From what I understand, it's never grown an audience, never made any money for Paramount or CBS All Access. And this will go down in history as one of the biggest. I'm not going to say it, as one of the worst shows of the 21st century so far, let alone the worst Star Trek show. I'll breathe.
Dan.
Yes.
Whenever we podcast, I want you to tell me how you really feel. Right? You echo what a lot of people are saying, Dan, and I appreciate those.
It's past a joke. Five seasons is shocking. I mean, it really is amazing. They've managed to squeeze this out. Yeah. To be honest, Kevin, I think it's because for a long time they didn't know what else to do, and it was that. Now they do know what else to do. They know through trial and error, I suppose, and I think you don't expect people to admit defeat, but
Well, I think that when they return to the kind of episodic storytelling with Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, that was kind of like a lot of people were happy to see that again in live action television, And the first couple of seasons of Star Trek PICARD are also debatable on, how that worked as well. Some people liked it, some people didn't, some people preferred
some of the same problems. Some of the same problems, Kevin. The fact that they've had a revolving door of showrunners hasn't helped. Didn't help either show.
Yeah, definitely. That could definitely lead to stuff when your leadership is always in question. So, any other comments,
Kevin?
Kyle? Yeah.
I just think what's interesting here and how it's falling out with Picard ending, and now we know Discovery is ending. I think they're really setting it up for Strange New Worlds to be the flagship show for Star Trek after this. And I really think you're going to see a lot of heavy push marketing and push on Strange New Worlds going.
Well, it's kind of with these show with Picard ending and of course Strange New Worlds ending, you pretty much have that
Discovery, not Strange New
Don't
Worlds.
tell me Strange New World is ending. Don't do that to me.
Discovery ending. Strange New World is definitely being put into the forefront of the flagship show. So yeah. All right, guys, we are discussing Star Trek Picard here, of course, and we're going to go ahead and let's get into our main topic discussion. All right. We are discussing Star Trek Season 3 of Picard, Episode 17 Seconds. Haley, would you like to give us the Admiral's Log episode synopsis?
Of course. The Shrike attacks the Titan, injuring Shaw, who transfers command to Riker. Beverly explains that she did not tell Picard about Jack to keep their son safe from assassination attempts on Picard. The Titan attempts to escape the nebula, but it is cornered by the Shrike using portal technology. Picard advises Riker to lure the Shrike into a trap, but Riker wants to flee and prioritize saving the crew. Jack and Seven deduce that Vadic is tracking a gas leak on the Titan and find an ensign sabotaging the ship. He is revealed to be a changeling and escapes their custody. Raffi and Worf capture a criminal that they believe is responsible for the attack. They discover that he is a changeling, a part of a group that has been fighting the Federation since the end of the Dominion War, and realize that the attack was just a distraction. Convinced by Picard's insistence that they fight back, Riker fires on the Shrike. Their weapons are redirected back at them with the portal, and the Titan sustains heavy damage. Riker orders Picard off the bridge as they drift towards a gravitational anomaly in the nebula.
Ooh, all right. Dan, I want to start with you here because, first of all, we haven't had you on the show yet. And second of all, I want to give you a two-part question here. First of all, You've been really excited. The show's kind of brought you back to Trek. You're getting the feels. You've expressed that on social media. I want you to explain that, and then give me your first reactions on this episode.
Well, yeah, it's a great sense of not just relief, but in my view, I feel like I've been swept away by this show. I felt a similar elation about Strange New Worlds, but I was a lot more careful going into that show. I didn't watch each episode go out weekly. I was expecting it to come off the rails, to be truthful, so I was very tentative with Strange New Worlds. With this, there was something about the way it was marketed, the people involved, the fact that they seemed to have taken their time to make it as well, that just made me feel confident that I could make that decision whether I was going to watch it or not, make that commitment to stay the course no matter what, because I never like bailing on things. I very seldom bail on shows once I've decided to start watching them. And happily, thankfully, from the minute the credits start, it's a completely different show to the show that existed before under exactly the same name. I think I've said this before, but for me, this isn't the third season of something, and it doesn't feel like the final season of something either. For me, so far, Star Trek Picard Season 3 has been proper event television, and I'm struggling to think when the last time I saw something that felt this essential, this alive, and this well-made within this genre. I think maybe the Mandalorian Season 1, I don't know, but I think it could probably be since before then. So I find this incredibly exciting, particularly as it's got a veteran cast too. They haven't filled the screen with new, young, pretty people. These are seasoned actors in the parts that we've loved them in for 35 years, led by a creative with real vision and real talent, and they know the story that they're telling us. There's a lot of confidence there, and when that confidence transmits, I think we can be safe and assured that the next couple of months are going to be very, very exciting, and that our time is going to be well rewarded.
Nice, well said. A lot of people have coined this like season 8 of Next Generation, or the movie that we wish that we could have got. So what are your first reactions on this episode, 17 Seconds?
Again, look, this show seems to get better by the week. And I say that, I think, oh God, touch wood, because I want it to carry on. It's obviously, we talked a moment ago about how Strange New Worlds has gone for the episode of the week, the different planet, whatever. This is more arc storytelling again, but this isn't some big cataclysmic nonsense like we get over on that other show, which I won't mention by name. This is really about the people, about the characters. And again, it's very easy to reach for characters they know we like and that we know and that we love, particularly when they're played by the same actors. But the new characters that are in it are just as well written, beautifully cast, played brilliantly, and it just all feels. To me, every single episode so far of these three has been better than the last one, incrementally.
Nice.
Some of them have been more spectacular than others, and some of them have been more introspective than others. And I'm sure that'll continue. But right now, the story is getting deeper, and I just feel it more, and I have to see what happens next. It's incredibly compelling.
Nice. Haley, what about you? Your first reactions of this episode?
If we gave my proper first reactions, it would be nothing but beep. Because I can't say the words. We'd have to mark this explicit. And
I just see Haley going, holy F, oh my F, S,
Yeah.
S, R.
Yeah, I was screaming at my TV,
So was I.
and it was absolutely fantastic and moving and beautiful. And yes, lots of swearing at my TV because Chloe came out and she's like, "What is wrong? Are you okay?" And I'm like, "It's this." And I was like telling her stuff, and she's like, "Chill out." No, I cannot. Yeah.
That's awesome. Kyle, what about you? First reactions to 17 Seconds.
Well, I think you should start calling me number one.
All right, number one.
Haven't you always?
This was a phenomenal episode of Picard. There were so many great moments in this episode, and I really felt like we had some just powerful moments, some moments we're going to remember and talk about as part of this history of Star Trek, this chapter of Star Trek. And it's being so well executed, and it's being so well acted. I mean, I think when I think about these first 3 episodes, that's the thing. The acting has just been superb across the board. And I know Jonathan Frakes talked about it in the Ready Room, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But that is what the story, every episode ends, and I'm like, no, not here. We need more. But every week I'm looking forward to it, not only for the story, but to see these actors performing at this level is just so incredible to watch.
Agreed.
Absolutely. They're probably better actors than they've ever been at this point in their careers. I mean, you talk about Jonathan Frakes. I don't think he's acted for a while, properly acted for a while. And I think I've forgotten how good he can be, which is it's on me. That's not on him. That's on me. And I think this is the best I've ever seen him be in anything.
And he's been great in some of those classic TNG. I hate calling TNG classic. I just caught myself saying classic TNG.
Legacy
hurts,
episodes,
doesn't it?
Legacy. Thank you. Still sounds.
I don't know. I think that's worse than classic.
Oh God. Okay, so I wanted to now we've got some topics we're going to cover that hit some really important parts of the plot of this episode, but there's some moments I did want to share. And one of those is Worf gets a killer one for his introduction in this episode. He goes, "I am Worf, son of Moog, House of Martok, son of Sergei, House of Rosenko, Bane of the Duras family, Slayer of Gowron. I made some chamomile tea. Do you take sugar?" I don't know about you, but that was great, especially when you hear the music getting all intense and then it kind of cuts out when he says sugar and you see Raffi go. The other moment I like too is a small moment, but I think it's going to come into play later, is the moment between Sidney LaForge and Seven when she visits her and says that, I don't see you, I'm forgetting the word, but how the reason why she was confined to quarters, that, her father, Geordi, would have seen why she did that. And I think that was a nice little moment between those two. And I think that's going to come back around us. I don't know about you guys. When we first were introduced to Shaw, yes, he came across as a dick, but I'm liking this guy. There's just something about.
I liked him instantly.
Oh my God. I love how he goes, "Anyone else want to throw some weird shit at me?" I've always wanted Captain to say something like that. I thought that was really, really funny. One of the more important scenes that I thought was really interesting, because it's kind of speaking for us as fans, is the scene with Jack and Riker. And Jack goes to Riker, "Can you please stop looking at me like that? Like I'm some outcome of some science experiment?" And Riker says, with a little smile on his face, because he's kind of smiling when Jack is pacing back and forth, and just says, "Sorry to tell you, kid, but you are. I've spent 2 decades in a spaceship watching you get cooked up before you were born. It was subtle at first, but that resemblance to your dad." That was a great moment.
Standout.
That was fantastic, because we're all thinking it going, and then we find out later they hooked up more than once. But I just thought that was a great moment. I want to get into the guest stars here, and I want to specifically talk to you about this, Dan, because this is your first time on the show, obviously, and this is directed by Jonathan Frakes. And we have a wonderful cast here. We're starting to get to know the crew on the bridge a little bit. Of course, we know Ensign Sidney LaForge, played by Ashley Sharp Chestnut. And we've got, of course, Michael Dorn returning, Seven, of course, Todd Stashwick as Captain Leon Shaw. And then, of course, as the villain, we've got Amanda Plummick as Vatic. I just want to get your thoughts on the cast of this episode.
Sensational. I mean, you just mentioned LaForge, Crash LaForge. Okay, what a delightful character. We've probably, her lines so far across all 3 episodes of probably 3 minutes on screen. Something we feel like we know her. She's incredibly relatable, very, very warm, beautifully cast. And every scene that we see her in, we find out something more about her, whether it's about her being her doubts, so whether she's brave or not, where her loyalties lie, where those lines in the sand are for her. I don't know. She just feels. it's not just obviously. We love Geordie LaForge. The idea if this is his daughter, we want her to be safe and well. That's that association too. But I'm feeling that way about all of the bridge crew. There's a bald Vulcan character in this too. Is she on the science station?
I think so. Yeah.
And again, you can. I mean, I know that Vulcans aren't supposed to display these things, but you can see that it's perhaps a younger character who's got. You can see doubt in the performance. And it just all feels just a lot more rounded. And I don't know. I think that has to be. I think they've obviously cast the parts well, which helps. But a lot of that has to be on the page. They must be very sure about the words that they're being given and put through it all by proper directors who work with that. I mean, the fact that Frakes directed this, I don't think I'd taken that in because he is, as I said before, he's so good in this to put in a performance like that and to direct it too. My God, some of these people, it's sickening how talented some people are.
Yeah, definitely. And the actress is Stephanie Kozowski as Lieutenant Tavine. Any other one, Haley, any comments on the cast of this episode?
No, the only thing that's been bothering me is, and I know we'll get to it, but the guy who is the ensign, but he's actually a changeling. Do you guys know where he's from? Because I recognize the actor, but I cannot place him.
So do I.
And I've tried looking it up, and I'm like, anyway. But I know I've seen him in something. But going back to the first episode when they go on the Titan, and he kind of has this look, I was like, oh, shit's gonna happen. It's gonna be him. It's gonna be him, and it was.
Well, don't they straighten? Doesn't Picard or Riker straighten his comm badge because it's slightly off in episode 1?
Mm-hmm.
So you think, so
Picard
you clock him, so you recognize him for later. It's all part of being told a story, isn't it?
Kyle, any thoughts on the cast this episode?
Well, to help Haley out, the name of that actor is That Guy because you see him and you recognize him.
Oh, good, great. Thank you.
There's so many great things in this episode. Everything with Worf is fantastic. Michael Dorn is killing it. I love the approach he's taking with Worf now. I know we're going to talk a little bit more about the moment between Picard and Beverly too, which I think has been one of the most powerful moments of the season. And to hear Dominion and Changeling gets me so excited because I still think there's so much untapped potential from the Dominion and the Dominion War and everything that came with it within the Star Trek universe. I love the fact that we're getting back to that. And especially because, Worf knows a thing or two about some Changeling stuff now.
This is true. He knows some stuff. We'll touch on that. So I'm excited. We're going to get into the first away mission here, guys. We got 4 topics that I want to touch on this because they're kind of important. So let's head to our first away mission. All right, guys. So the first one that I want to discuss is Beverly hiding Jack from Picard and everyone else. When Picard learns Beverly got pregnant and willingly kept the truth from him, having a son together from him, she points out her reasons for refusing as her not wanting to live a life of constant danger, especially since Picard seems to have a target on his back every other week. But as Picard points out, dangerous or no, he was still willing to give it all up so he could be a father. And Beverly took that chance from him by refusing to tell him about Jack. So this is one of those things I want you guys to think about is when they were going back and forth, they both made their points very, very well. It was tough to side with one or the other sometimes. And then you kind of think about it, you're going, well, even if he did give up the life of being a Star Trek captain, he might still have a target on his back. So, so anyway, I want to start with you, Haley, your thoughts on the Beverly and Picard situation.
Yeah, so I think this line from Picard sums it up. What could have been had I known, what might have been, what might I have been, is really wonderful. I loved this because I'm so glad that they addressed it. It didn't take I didn't want it to be like a long part of an episode addressing this. And so I really liked how they put this into the story in this episode, and it still leaves it for discussion, but for like an off-screen type of discussion between the two of them. I can understand Dr. Crusher's fears, given everything and given their history and all of that. I mean, they've ended their romantic relationship 5 times, apparently, which we kind of all knew, but whatever. But I get it. But at the same time, like, yeah, how do you handle saying, okay, if I don't tell someone this, we don't know the outcome. We don't know what would have happened. And it could have been something wonderful and beautiful. It might not have been. But I get Captain Picard's side of saying, you took that for me. I didn't even get the choice. I didn't get an option. And it's really kind of sad. And now you can kind of see why Jack has a chip on his shoulder. I mean, she tells him, I told him who you are. He's known for, whoever knows how long. And he decided not to reach out to you, even though I encouraged him to. And I think it's really beautiful. And I'm really excited to see how this is going to wrap up, because, by the end of this season, they are going to make this really beautiful. I don't think it's going to happen in the next episode. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but I think by the end, there is going to be some moment that is going to happen, and that chip on Jack's shoulder is going to fall off. Do I think that they will be a family unit together? Not necessarily, because again, we know that Picard is in a relationship already. And so, but I do think that there is going to be a really beautiful moment at the end.
Dan, I'm really glad that they explained the accent to Jack, because I don't know if you know this or not. He kind of sounds like you, but you've got that kind of Birmingham
twang.
kind
I've
of.
got the twang.
Yeah, you've got the Birmingham edge, But still, I'm glad they explained that. Your thoughts on the scene between those two?
The Birmingham edge is actually a pub. Only a few miles. Ed Spielers has been fantastic in this. I remember him from Downton Abbey, but even so, I mean, he's a revelation in this. As for this scene, for me, this is what traditionally Star Trek does better than certainly any other genre show that I can think of. Always has these kind of situations where it will explain to you, illustrate to you, or walk you through both sides to a story, to a dilemma, to a moral situation, and lead you in one direction and then another, and then by the end of it, more often than not, leave you to make your own mind up, and to debate that which has been on screen. I mean, usually it tends to be around the fate of civilizations or something like that, or the crew of a ship or something of that nature, something to do with adventure. But in this instance, it's something deeply intimate concerning 2 characters, well 3 now, that we deeply care about and know and want the best for. And so it's difficult to watch in some respects and to listen to patiently listen to. And I was hanging on every word. Again, down to Gates McFadden, Patrick Stewart, and the writers. And there's 2 writers on this episode, which I'm just very grateful for the material of this high quality. Because I watched this episode last night, and I was thinking about it for a good while after I watched it. I doubt I'm alone in having been in situations similar to this, where decisions of enormous significance about matters just as big as this have been made for me by another person. So it rattled a few skeletons in my closets, I suppose you could say. So that affects you on another level too. But then it's very difficult, as you said, Kevin, to vilify Beverly when a lot of what she says, it's demonstrably true. So it's fascinating, great writing and fantastic acting, as has been the case throughout.
Kyle, we have seen this relationship the same through the eyes as Riker mentions in the episode against Jack. We're like, come on, just do it already. Just make it happen. And we find out.
Oh, I always thought they did. They never talked about it. Possibly. Yeah. I mean,
that's another way to look at it. That is definitely, especially we don't know how long those morning teas would go for. So, but Kyle, what you want to get your thoughts on this scene between the two? They both had big points.
They both had very legitimate points. I think this comes down to a question, though, of I understand why she Beverly wants to protect Jack, and she has questions about whether Picard would actually give up his lifestyle at that time, where the stars always call him. However, on the flip side is we're talking about Jean-Luc Picard. He's going to be a good father. He might not. He's a man who would put that as a priority. So I think that where Beverly is wrong is not even giving Picard a chance to make a decision. And while I understand her motherly instinct, think about all that Beverly Crusher has lost. She lost her husband. She lost Wesley. And now she has this. And with all she's been through, she's going to do everything she can to protect and hold on to this, even if it means hurting a man that she loves. And I know, and that she knows he loves her. But I think they're the kind of relationship where it's like they have this love for each other, but it's just never going to quite work right. And
Kyle,
for a variety of reasons.
Do you think that Beverly's probably got a lot of unresolved psychological issues that she's run away from having got sorted?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it. I think too.
It's a lot of loss, isn't it?
I think we've only hit the tip of the iceberg of how Beverly Crusher has changed since the end of Next Generation and the films. I think there's a lot more we're going to see from her. I think there's more interesting things than Jack. We're going to have a really good moment with the three of them before the season is out, but don't expect the feel good, happy family endings when the season is over.
Because Dr. Crusher's always been a still water, hasn't she? In so much of it.
Yeah.
But a lot of what, looking back at the standout performances from Gates McFadden throughout TNG, there was a lot going on under the surface. The still waters run deep kind of thing. It's true. She's that kind of actress.
The other thing too, the question I had out of this scene was when she said that she told Jack how to find Picard, but yet you're still feeling that Jack is holding some dark resentment towards Jean-Luc. And where did that come from? Was there something there that Beverly was teaching, or was there something that Beverly could have done saying, no, he's a good man, he's just dangerous to be around, So I'm kind of wondering where that happened and what we might find out why Jack feels the way that he does. So Haley.
I have a thought on that because Jack later, when he's, talking to Riker in the hall right there, he says that, his mom would start telling stories about her time on the Enterprise and with all these people, and then she would stop. Where in those stories did she stop? If it's in a spot where negative things are happening and she kind of stops in the middle because she doesn't want to continue it because, she didn't want to traumatize him and that kind of stuff, you can see how, depending on the stories that she's saying and how often she would talk about it, that he would somehow think that those things didn't end up getting resolved like they should have. Right. And maybe he put in his head, okay, this is how it should have happened and this is how I would have handled it. And his mom just never really clarified.
That's a good point. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next episodes if something comes to fruition and to the surface here. So this is why I'm loving the show, for all the reasons that you guys are. There's all these little moments to hang on. Like, are they going to talk about that now? Oh, wait a minute. Nope. They got to deal with the bigger problem, But I did want to touch on the next topic here, guys. This one was a lot of fun to revisit here. This is, of course, the Picard and Riker, their friendship. They have some new tension now between them in this episode. Also, I love the quote where Riker and Picard are on the bridge, and this is after Picard fires a torpedo, and it works. It pushes the Shrike away, and then Riker says, "Thank you, Jean-Luc." Picard says, "Well, I think it's time you call me number one." And then Will has that little smile there. But when Picard and Riker start arguing about how to handle the Shrike, Riker argues that they need to get the hell out of there because he has 500 lives he's responsible for. And so there's a lot of tension there. And at the end of the episode, Riker orders Picard off the bridge at the end of the episode. And regarding the tension, I do want to tease a little bit about what is mentioned in the interview in this week's episode of The Ready Room. Well, Will is interviewing Jonathan Frakes, and Frakes says Roddenberry's vision was that he didn't like conflict, and we're assuming that he meant among the crew. And both of them nodded their heads saying, yes, that's true. But apparently that didn't always sit well with the cast and crew. The actors were told conflict is the essence of drama. And then he goes on to say, so, and I like the scene when he's being interviewed, because then Frakes looks up knowing that's where Gene is, and says, so I think, sorry, Gene, we're more interesting if we have conflict and differences of opinion. And so I think he's kind of right when it comes to this, guys. And I wanted to get your thoughts on, first of all, we get him just having fun, drinking some drinks, and we get the call in from Troy, which was hilarious. But Haley, I'm going to go to you on this one here. The Riker and Picard friendship.
Yeah, it's interesting. Captain Picard, Captain Riker is kind of an ass. Saying. It's interesting. Like, we've never really gotten to see him as captain. We've seen him take over and stuff like that in TNG, but never really truly be captain of the ship where he's, completely fully responsible. And so it was fun to see that dynamic between the two of them where Riker was the captain and Picard's just there. And what would take place? And it's easy to speculate that they just listen to each other and bounce ideas, but it was complete opposite. And that was really, really interesting to see. And I think even with all of that, and even him saying, you need to get off this bridge, basically get out, like, you're pissing me off. Their friendship will still continue to stand the test of time, no matter what they go through together, because they share such mutual respect for each other. And in, the interview, Will and Riker were talking about how, they are kind of like brothers, and one's the older brother sometimes and one's not, and that goes back and forth. And I think that really is the case, that their relationship is a brotherhood, and they will continue to be friends no matter how rude they are to each other at times and things like that. And I love all of this. I love seeing them on screen together. I've met them both, and I've had interactions with the cast, and their friendship really comes through, and getting to have interactions with most of the actors from TNG, actually all of them now. It's wonderful to see them on screen in these episodes, because they talk about, in the Ready Room, their friendship that they've had since filming TNG. And it really comes through, even though it's probably not intentional. It really does shine for people who have been able to have interactions with them. And it just makes these scenes so much more when they are having an argument, when they aren't getting along, because deep in their hearts they really do, and off screen they're just being ridiculous. So
yeah, good point. Kyle, your thoughts?
They have such a unique relationship because they are one is the other's peer, but they are like brothers, but they are also kind of, you've got the big brother, little brother dynamic, but there's such mutual respect. But what I think you're seeing in this particular episode and in these moments is that, you're seeing a Riker that has done it now without Picard. And you're also seeing a Riker who has lost a child and is dealing with the fear of that loss, with his intention to protect the crew. And I think you're seeing a Riker who's in conflict with himself throughout this episode. And again, because he has been a captain himself now for so long, it's hard to fall back into saying, oh, I'm answering to this other person. Yes, you have the mutual respect. And then when you have a moment where you put your trust in that person and it backfires, and you kind of went against the instinct you're feeling at the time, and you trust in this person and it backfires, it really causes havoc. And what that final line he says to Jean-Luc at this episode is an incredibly powerful and emotional moment, and kind of a step back to even hear that from him. And so I think one of the things too that you're seeing, and I think it's something they're doing very well in this season, is seeing the emotional depth of each character now. And you're seeing it with Riker as it plays out with Riker right now. We got a tease of this in season 1, but now we're really seeing it. And there's obviously much more going on inside of Riker than we know about. And I think it also ties into the fact he mentioned problems with Troy at the beginning of the season and things like that. So there's conflict going on within Riker, and I think it's making very interesting. And just one other thing, nobody delivers the red alert line like Captain William Riker.
Red alert.
Definitely
this is true. Dan, I wanted to get your thoughts on this as well. What I find was interesting, though, that little line that Jack says to Riker when they're referring to Jean-Luc Picard, he's a synth, but Riker shoves that away, saying he's still the man he is. And I thought that was really cool. Your thoughts on Riker and Picard?
Watching these scenes, it's not easy viewing, is it?
No.
Because we wanted to see these characters come back together, and we've seen them be warm and cuddly together and be mischievous together and adventure together, which ticks a lot of our boxes, doesn't it? But this is something that we probably didn't sign up for. It's things that we didn't think we wanted. And I suspect that when the story's full told, we'll look back on this and think, my God, that was good. It's very powerful. I did find the conclusion that it reaches. It's difficult to watch, but again, the acting is so good. The way that Picard looks into himself, he has enough faith, respect, and everything in between for Riker, for not just as a friend, but as a captain, as an equal, that he trusts his judgment. He knows he's transgressed some boundaries. He knows what he's done, and he accepts it. And I don't think it harms Picard's character at all. In fact, I think it deepens that too. Again, Patrick Stewart's been playing this role for 35 years. I feel we're still finding out new things about him. There's so many levels to Picard in particular.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. I've been enjoying this, and I like the fact that there is conflict here. And I think it's important to write these into here, because you can't have relationships this long without having some type of difference. The challenge is overcoming them and trying to understand each other more, and thus caring for each other more too. And sometimes, friendships and families sever ties, and it's sad, but I just can't see that happening with this crew. But it's nice to see that there is some tension there. All right, guys, let's get into topic number 3 here. And I think this is a very interesting thing. We, of course, get Worf and Raffi together finally. And Worf, we get the Changeling saboteurs, the After Dominion War threats. We get that awesome Raffi interrogation of the Changeling, and we find out there's a Changeling. And Worf recaps the broad strokes of the Dominion War and the Changelings to Raffi, something that is more necessary for newer viewers who missed DS9 rather than Raffi and older viewers, especially given the tie-in to the literature's already confirming Raffi served during the war, albeit as part of the Romulan affairs. This was a really nice scene. I liked that they're kind of doing a thing together now. But I want to get your guys' thoughts on this too. And Raffi really gets some good moments in this. Haley, I want to start with you.
Well, first off, it's sabotage.
Sabotage.
Correct would say. No, I really liked this. I think this was like Raffi realizing who this was and just being like totally blown away by like, I'm with
You're
Worf?
a legend.
Worf? What? And it's really interesting, this whole, okay, we're going to track this guy. We're going to find him. And at first I was like, oh, Raffi's recognizing like he's going through some withdrawals because his way he was acting was very similar. And then for Worf to click in and be like, oh no, I know what this is. And recognize that this was a changeling. And also, I don't know if you guys caught it, but man, they really updated the changeling liquid form, and it was gross. It was gross. I was like, ew. Yeah, no, that's not pleasant. No, I really like this. I like that they've realized that there is something bigger, and I'm really intrigued by that because I'm curious, like, does this have something to do with Picard and Jack? Like, is that the thing that like this whole other thing was a distraction of? Like, I am totally confused. I'm down for whatever it is. And I'm really excited to see these two work together. Just remember, guys, beheadings are on Wednesdays. Do your Klingon calisthenics, please. yeah, just remember that. Always keep a phaser on full stun in case you run across any more changelings. That's all I'm gonna say. And I have an idea, but we're talking about it next. So,
all right, Dan, your thoughts on Raffi and Worf here?
I had a vision. Everybody had a vision. It wasn't like Gene's vision, but it was the nearest I'll ever get. In that, I realised that once I saw that the original cast are all coming back, and that Michelle Hurd, was remaining in the cast as Raffi, I thought she's going to get on really well with Worf. And I had in my head, I imagined that at some point he would say, you are a warrior, or something like that. And we do get that in this. I'm glad that she's still in the cast. I think this has redeemed the character quite a lot. I think I've always liked this actress. I've seen her in lots of other things. And opposite Michael Dorn, Worf's never been my favourite TNG character. I got a bit Worfed out when he was on DS9 as well, because DS9 is my favourite Star Trek show. So I got a bit Worfed out after a while, but I was so pleased to see him again. And to find the character this evolved, but in a way that we're not certain of by any stretch. We don't know where the boundaries of any of this are. This character, I would imagine it's going to unfold over the next 6 weeks or so. But yeah, it's fascinating to watch. Just as much of a joy as the rest of it, even though these characters haven't known each other for decades. They're getting to know one another. But it all feels so right. It's very, very charged. And I knew that it was all going to pull together somehow. Kind of like you said, Hadley, I'm down for wherever they're going to take us with this. I'm not the kind of bloke who sits there week by week, densely trying to work out, I'm going to out with this. I'm going to get to the conclusion of this before it's given to me. I'm going to work out where this all connects. I don't, particularly when I'm enjoying something. If I'm enjoying something to this degree, I'm happy to be walked through it. I'm happy to be fed it in a sense because it's all so enjoyable. There's lots of other things to take in. So yeah, I just think it's great. And the changelings and like you said, Kevin, hearing the Dominion War again and the Great Link and all, it makes you remember that Star Trek doesn't have to be connected all the time, and you don't have to lean on the lore. But it's been so long since a series did this effectively, and of any kind. I think probably since the movies, come to think of it, it just feels great. It really does feel like Star Trek is back. It's taken a long time, but Star Trek is back, and scenes like this and the way this is all playing out, they're perfect examples of how to do it well, how to plot things well.
Kyle, I want to get your thoughts on Worf and Raffi. And when Dan was saying he was getting a little bit of Worf burnout during Deep Space Nine, and I remember there's a few moments because he was in a lot of them. But I remember us also saying during Star Trek Discovery we were getting burnout as well because we wanted to learn more about the rest of the cast. But tell me about your thoughts here on these two.
Okay, Star Trek Ronan, who says no? So first of all, there's that. The evolution of that Michael Dorn has given Worf, just in what little we've seen already, is absolutely spectacular. This is the perfect team up. Jonathan Frakes mentions this on the Ready Room. He would love to see a spin-off show with these two. I am all for that. I think that would be a great, even if it's just a 1 season, 10 episodes run. These two together just is classic. And what interesting difference between how Raffi reveres Worf and talks about how a legend compared to how Shaw treated Riker and Picard when they came on the Titan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But no, and just like I said earlier, the fact that we are bringing in changelings, we're mentioning the Dominion, we're dealing with some of Worf's past history being involved in this. And I love the fact, consider me an independent contractor.
I'm leaving this image up of the melted changeling because I love the faces that Haley's making right now.
Well, the other thing is I'm wondering, Haley, if this is so because he was away from the Great Link too long, and so we're seeing the illness affect itself. He's not as clean as like Odo would be, and
no, because remember, even when Odo was like starting to like flake and peel, when he finally was able to turn into their, gelatinous whatever state, it really wasn't that gross. This is just because, again, and then as they talked about in the Ready Room, with Worf's makeup, they weren't changing Worf but it's no longer like this foamy headpiece that they had to put on because things have changed. They had to update the makeup because of the increased technology. And so really I owe it up to just, there's better TVs. They have to make things look better because you couldn't slap in Odo's, gooey phase into this show because it wouldn't look well anymore. How many people are watching on like 4K? I mean, I don't, but like how many people have 4K TVs and the Blu-ray and everything else? And so like, you really have to up your game in order to make things not look super weird. I mean, it's like going back and looking like, people talk about like, oh, I don't watch like 60s television because, you can tell the sets are cardboard and blah, 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 whatever, because you can see that it looks ridiculous now compared to everything else. And so even though, and 90s were 30 years ago, it's fine.
Legacy years ago.
They can't continue to use the same look. So I think it really is just that they had to update it.
Gotcha.
And it's just gross. It's gross.
All right, guys, I want to get into the next topic here. This is the Shrike portal weapon. And this is interesting because we also get and I got a picture up here of that ensign changeling. And after watching it again, I realized that because he just wanted to get eyes on where they were, they actually sent crew members to look out windows to see where the Shrike was. And that one ensign that was with someone else was this guy in the beginning of the episode. And he's like, we don't see anything here. And then you find out later he's a changeling. But guys, we got this pretty badass ship here that has a portal weapon now. The Shrike portal weapon. What is its end game? What's your speculation? And this comes on a very important thing during that scene between Beverly and Picard, where Beverly's responding to Picard, says, I don't think it has anything to do with him. She's referring to Jack. It has somehow something to do with you. That's no bounty hunter ship. That's a warship with Jean-Luc Picard-sized enemies behind it. Bum, bum, bum. So, guys, I want to get your thoughts on what you think the end game is here. And I'm going to go right back to you, Haley, because you alluded to something you wanted to say.
Yeah.
By the way, you're also the Oracle, so I'm really expecting you to step up your game here. Okay.
Okay. I think I got something. First off, when this first happened, expletives screaming at my television. I just thought that was insane. And how cool of a weapon for somebody to have and use in a ship. It's kind of like in the other episode where they flung the ship at the Titan, like using things in a different way. Super fantastic, really incredible, well done, well shot. I was not expecting that whatsoever. I will throw this out right now. It is not the Shrike's portal weapon. It is a copy, because if we're saying that there are the changelings and Dominion War potential and this whole link stuff coming back in, how easy could they had technology and were able to do things that Starfleet could not. In the episode where the portal was used to take and destroy that town, it's not the Shrike's portal weapon. It is a copy of the weapon that was stolen from Daystrom, and how many more are out there? Bum, bum, bum.
Yes, that's why we're getting Raffi and Worf on the job to try and find out what's going on here. So that's a good point.
And so this was absolutely well done, spot on. This was incredible. I am going to throw this out here. I think that this nebula is the nebula we saw in Strange New Worlds, where Dr. M'Benga's daughter goes out into it and becomes a part of it, because they have said it has electrical and biological pulses. And I think that this nebula could potentially be that same nebula, or one very similar, because remember, Strange New World is well before all of this. That nebula could still be out there, and how many other people have decided to join this nebula to live on forever, and somehow this nebula is going to save the Titan.
I don't know if we should go on any further, guys, because I think Haley just, did a walk-off home run here. Good luck following her, Dan. Go for it.
I'm going to say, I'm glad somebody's been paying attention, Haley, because quite frankly, all that passed me by. But of course, yes, you're right. I mean, of course, it's the same weapon. Of course, it is. I can't believe that. I think, in my defense, I've been enjoying myself so much. I'm terrible. It all just, it just blinked out of my memory. Of course, it's the same weapon, and I've got no idea where it's going. I just think it's all spectacular to watch, and I get caught up in the human interest drama of it. So all of that stuff. Yeah, I mean, well done, Haley. The Strange New World stuff just sort of blew my mind, because obviously it's quite possible that's true, that has gone somewhere. Again, we've seen things like that with the Q Continuum. We saw Wesley he seems to be able to just pop in and out of wherever he is too. So I wouldn't put it past them, and I'd be down for that too. I think this everything they're doing on screen at the moment seems like a springboard for other things sort of under the surface to some of these characters we'll see again, some of the situations we'll see again. The political angle, I've no doubt, won't be all tied up by the end of it. And so I suppose anything's possible.
Kyle, the dialogue between Raffi and Worf realized that the attack on Starfleet was just kind of the beginning, maybe hiding something even bigger, more nefarious. Obviously, we're seeing it happen against the Titan here. Your thoughts on this portal weapon in the endgame? What do you think?
Well, first of all, for all of our listeners out there who play Portal, you'll understand this reference. There better be cake at the end of this season of Picard. That's all I'm saying.
I'm just going to laugh and pretend I know what you're talking about.
I'm having a clue. I'll own up. I don't know what you're talking about, but it sounds fun. I like cake. Who doesn't like cake?
Exactly. No, what I think, the fact that we've now added changelings and Dominions really changes the aspect of this portal weapon, because I think the Dominion and the changelings are probably the master puppeteers here with this, and they are they're stealing this technology and giving it to people who would be enemies of the Federation. Now, obviously, the Strike is a warship, and I think it's being used as a tool by the Dominion now, and I think they found somebody who, for some reason, has a mat on at Picard, and is kind of a mercenary type person, not so much a bounty hunter, but mercenary. And they've sent her after Jack, knowing the connection between Jack and Picard being the target, because I think getting at Jean-Luc Picard affects Starfleet so much more across the board than any other person probably in Starfleet right now, as far as what it would do to morale, what it would do to just in general, and the secrets that Picard has, especially being a synth now. I think it changes the game there. The other aspect of this portal weapon that I find so interesting too is obviously it's going to be a big part of the season. We've seen it now used in destruction of Starfleet property and now being used as a weapon against the Titan. I think the bigger question is what else have they stole from Daystrom, and what's floating out there, and could this be leading into how they somehow bring mention of Data into this show with Daystrom Institute and a few other things? So we know there's still some things in Daystrom floating around that involve Data. So this might be how they also find a way to incorporate things with Data.
Do you think that Vedic is a changeling as well? Because she's got a sort of Odo look about her, hasn't she?
She does. I don't know if she's a changeling or not, but there's definitely something going on there. So,
well, guys, I'm going to call an audible. We're going to go right into the next away mission here, and going to get in a little bit of trivia, and of course into the ready room. So let's go ahead and head into the next away mission. Right around here somewhere. There we go. All right, guys, we got some Star Trek trivia and Easter eggs. Now, before I read some of these here, as you see some Easter eggs there, Dan, stop laughing. It's funny. Come on. I'm going to mention some, but I wanted you guys to think about if there's any Easter eggs you mentioned, any callbacks to other episodes, stuff like that, or movies. Keep that in the back of your mind, because I do have some trivia here for you. The music playing when Worf is practicing his combat moves is from the opera Le Train by Berlioz. Thank you, Berlioz. I
welcome.
knew I was going to butcher that. It's the same opera Picard is listening to in his ready room at the beginning of the film Star Trek First Contact. The line must be drawn here. Sorry, had to say it. I was going to do it. Thomas Dekker, the actor, makes his third appearance in the Star Trek franchise as Titus Rika. That's That's the changeling they caught, Raffi and Worf, and the one that turned into goo. He had previously appeared as a child actor in the film Star Trek Generations as Thomas Picard, as well Henry Burleigh in 2 episodes of Star Trek Voyager. So it's nice that they bring in these actors from other shows. And I think it's in the voiceover, Worf refers to Odo when he said that a source of great honor from the Great Link approached him and warned him about the new threat. Be kind of interesting if we're going to see Odo, even though Rene Auberjonois isn't with us anymore, rest in peace, or we're going to get more references of him, because we kind of want to know if anyone would know what's going on. Obviously he would. We have here as well the Michael Dorn and Worf's makeup, as makeup artist James McKinnon discusses on the radio room. Worf's distinctive Klingon look has been preserved for continuity reasons, but given the advances in prosthetics and the advent of HD since filming since Nemesis, the makeup's now much more sophisticated than it was during the early 24th century productions. And the iconic changeling shape-shifting effect from Deep Space Nine was previously updated for the changeling's cameo in Discovery, but it wasn't really shown in depth or detail. The Discovery redesign is carried over to Picard and has been further tweaked both to reflect the advancements in CGI since the 1990s and fit the Picard design aesthetic, and also just to gross out Haley as well.
Yeah. Basically.
The Titan A and Shrike are in the exact same position that Kirk's Enterprise and Khan's Reliant were in 120 years earlier. 2 ships engaging in a cat and mouse battle inside a dense nebula that renders their perspective sensor systems useless. And Riker and Picard's torpedo trick was first introduced in Voyager 2-part episode Workforce, where the Doctor cited it as a Romulan tactic. Do you guys have any, Easter eggs or any callbacks to any other episodes or movies? And
Me, sir.
Yes. What you got there, Dan? What you
that
got?
boy at the back. Well, I'm amazed you didn't mention this one, actually. The bar that Picard and Riker are downing a few bevies in at the beginning. If you look across the bar, there's various sort of flashing lights and things, but there's a neon sign as well with the name of the bar, and it's got like a pink speckles all underneath, and it's the same bar that Dr. McCoy's seen drinking in at the beginning of Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. Same sign, same bar. I don't know, unless it's a chain. I don't know. Maybe it's like Starbucks and there's lots of them. But
dude, that's a good call out. Didn't that one also have like some tribbles in it too, if I remember correctly?
It did, yeah. And the guy with the horns, the ugly fellow with the horns. Yeah.
That's really cool. Good call out there. Yeah. Kyle, you got anything?
I can't top that. What are you talking about?
Haley.
Nope. I got nothing.
Right. All right, guys. Let's head into the ready room. All right, guys. Now we know, Dan, you haven't had a chance to see it because apparently they don't allow people to see it in the UK for
Paramount. They always do that. We don't even get the trailers. Their region on YouTube, they won't let us see the trailers. It's not viewable in our location. It says very sternly.
Well, we're going to play this out for you here because it was a great episode. And of course, Will does an awesome job with his guest. And of course, this episode, we got Jonathan Frakes joins Will Wheaton in the radio room to discuss Frakes' return as Captain Riker for Star Trek Picard's final season and directing this week's episode 17 Seconds. Plus, we get an inside look at the season's hero ship, the USS Titan, celebrate a reunion with Klingon warrior Worf Michael Dorn, and much more. And I want to touch on the Titan real quick, guys, that segment, because they mentioned too that it's not the Titan ship from Lower Decks. It's a newer version. And it's great because they talk about the original designers of it and the starships. Michael Okuda is in there. But the funniest moment, though, is when Jerry Ryan is in the interview. She says, the seats are super spinny. And they show some takes in between of them, in between takes, and you see Jerry just like sliding or spinning around, and you see Frakes doing it as well. And what's his name? The captain, I'm forgetting, is Shaw, right? Captain Shaw. He talks about how they feel like race car seats and stuff like that. So I thought that was really, really cool. Also, too, the interview with Frakes, I love how when he gets to direct new people, and this was a moment that both he and Will kind of bonded on, and this is the ship shake, and that there's a 1 through 10 direction that he gives, and that when you hit 7 or 8 or higher, people got to start falling down. I thought that was really, really funny. That everyone does the
left
shake. It's
right. You got to go left or right.
You're part of the secret club now. You know that secret handshake.
Yeah, but when you get to 7 or 8, you get people flying and falling.
Someone's gonna fall down. Yep.
So I thought that was funny too. And then Frakes touched on Worf and called him a warrior monk, which I thought was really, really cool. And in the Worf segment, it was great to see Michael Dorn talk about being approached to come back. Terry Matalas calls Worf a samurai, which I thought was neat. And that he took some feedback from Michael Dorn of how the direction that they could take him, and then they went with it and wrote it. And made some changes to the original concept. That he's with Starfleet Intelligence, he's freelance, and he's using his experience from the Dominion War. And it was also a nice moment during that segment, too, with Michelle Hurd talking about the moments working with Michael Dorn and working with the famous Worf. And so those were some really nice moments. Haley, your thoughts on the Ready Room?
Yeah, no, I love this one. It was great. It's always nice to see when Will gets to talk to Jonathan and whatnot, because I think they have such a different dynamic than he has with Beverly and Picard. So I just love it. Anyway, but I have one thing, and I'm kind of a little sad about it. I really wish Worf's hair wasn't so smooth. Like I loved in DS9 where his hair was longer, it was a little like crimped, and he would tie it back. Like it just looked really cool. And now his hair's a little smoother, and I'm kind of not a fan.
Interesting. He might be using that new Klingon version of Perk Plus. Maybe that's what he's using. I don't know.
Kyle, wine. Hey, wash with blood wine. You'd be surprised at the results you get, and extra shine.
Yeah,
Kyle, your thoughts. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just because anytime we saw like Martok, any of like the older ones, even if they had like graying hair, it still was like curly, and I kind of like I didn't realize that I missed it, and then I'm like looking at him, and I'm like, I mean, I like it, I dig it, but I wish the hair was still kind of a little crimped. I don't know.
Kyle, your thoughts on the Ready Room?
I love this episode. It's probably I thought the first episode for the season with Patrick Stewart and Gates McFadden was really good, but this just tops it. Like Kaylee said, anytime Will and Jonathan can get together, as Will calls him, Johnny, which just sounds weird, but
that was cool.
It's magic, because those two just have such a unique big brother, little brother kind of relationship that you feel. And Jonathan Frakes always just kind of seems like he's always kind of tried to look out for Will Wheaton in a way. And I love the there's two conversations I really loved in this episode. First, when he's talking about watching Amanda Plummer act on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How everybody was just transfixed. When she was on, it was like appointment viewing for anybody who was on set that day. So that tells you just how powerful her performance is. But there's another piece of the conversation I also thought was a very astute point by Will Wheaton. Everybody except by John Frakes, everybody except Will Wheaton and possibly LeVar Burton, who might be turning it this year, is 70 or older.
Really?
Original TNG cast. And he brought up the point. There is no way in the 90s that kind of casting would be allowed to happen. And then Will said, for Jonathan thought Will was still 49. No, it's Will, I'm 50 now. And he says, oh, that makes the story even greater. But they have this discussion about the age of the cast and how he thinks it's also so reflective in their performances because they have 35 years experience as these characters. And I think there's something to very much be said when we look at how outstanding the performances are on the season of Picard.
I'm glad you brought that up, Kyle,
Yeah.
because one of the things I was thinking is because in the interview, Frakes refers to, and you can tell that this was filmed a little while ago. He's referring to where he just saw either the trailer or maybe the first episode of the new Yellowstone spinoff,
1983. Is it 23 or 83?
It's 1923.
Okay.
And he's referring to Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren. And I just finished watching that series and it was fantastic. And how, yes, back in the 90s and stuff like that, you might not see all of these, legacy characters putting on a show. They would have to squeeze in some young, hot, famous movie star to carry it, and it made me think about, I'm like, there's a lot more action heroes older now. Obviously, Harrison Ford is leading the way, but I kind of feel we got a little bit of Liam Neeson kind of resurging that a little bit with Taken. And then he started doing all these Taken movies and other movies that were like Taken. And then you get John Wick, with, Keanu Reeves, who's pushing 60 himself. He's in his 50s. So it was a nice call out to noticing that all of these actors are of a certain legacy and they're just killing it. They're doing a great job. Haley.
I have a thought on that, and this goes to the last couple of times that we've gone to FanX. The talent that they have been pulling in is catering to a very specific generation. Like, some younger kids get it, but they know who their target audience is. And I think that's kind of the same thing with this. These are actors that we all grew up watching. Like, I remember watching Helen Mirren and Harrison Ford, and and they were older when I was a kid, but they're people that we grew up watching, and we're the ones who are, I'm not saying younger people aren't watching television, but I think there's this notion that we are still kind of the target audience. Like, we're older, so we want to see different stories from these same actors that we grew up loving and watching. And I think that maybe could be part of why we still see Helen Mirren and things. Like, I loved her in Red. Those two movies were fantastic.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Helen Mirren, like, gunning people down, it's fantastic.
Oh my God, I loved her in that. It was great. It was great. You're right.
So, I think there's this notion that we are still kind of a target audience for this, as we grew up with these people and watching them in films and TV and things, and we still want to continue to see them do things, because, like, FanX, seriously, like, they're getting people that, I grew up, there's always some Backstreet Boys that are there, and, like, there are people there, and I'm like, oh my God, it's like me. Like, the last time we went, Jaleel White was there, and I'm sorry, unless any kid watched that, like, after the 90s, like, their parents made them sit down and watch Family Matters, they're not going to know who the heck that was, but I know who it is. And so it's really interesting to see things catered to, our generations for stuff like this. And I love it.
We're the ones who have the money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Disposable income. Yes, definitely.
Did I do that?
Before I get you guys' final thoughts on this week's episode, I did want to go ahead, take us out and just look into the orb of prophecy here. So we got a little peek in the ready room of a little teaser of the next episode, and they pretty much kind of just show the beginning of the episode, so they don't get too deep into it. And it was a really good little teaser. Basically, the Titans effed. They're barely hanging on there. But I did find one thing interesting, was that this big flash of light, as you can see in this picture here, something's happening. Something is happening. Don't know what's going on, but I thought it was good. And by the way, Jonathan Frakes returns as the director for this episode as well. And I don't know if you guys want to give your final thoughts on this episode here of 17 Seconds, but do you guys want to also maybe think what you might get in the next episode called No Win Scenario? Kyle, I'm going to start with you, buddy.
Are we sure the Orb of Prophecy's name isn't Haley? Since we're changing names. Just on this episode we just watched, PICARD just gets better and better, in my opinion. I love what they're doing with the character development in this, and the intensity of what is going on in this nebula and what is going on with Worf and Raffi and these parallel stories that are going on. I have a feeling that as these stories continue, we're going to see how each one brings in other characters from TNG to eventually bring us all together at the end when you have everybody together, giving us the Star Trek shot that we will never have gotten from Star Wars, but that's a whole other thing. But I think in this upcoming episode, I think
hold on. Are you talking about the reunion of the cast? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah. I actually, when Haley mentioned about the nebula, I had, having seen what was in the ready room with that preview, I was like, she's hitting it on the head. And I kind of had that thought in the back of my mind too, because I think this is flash of light that we see at the end when they're trying to make it look like it's something's getting worse. I think it's actually something that could be to the benefit of the Titans. So we'll play out. At this point, I'm not even going to try to otherwise guess what's going on in Picard. I just want to enjoy the ride as it is, because it is an absolutely phenomenal ride, and it can't come fast enough every week.
Good point. Dan, back at you here. Your thoughts on this last episode. Are you with Kyle too? You don't want to speculate, you're just on for the ride?
I'm never one for speculation. It depends on how much I know about something. With this, I can't speculate. I mean, that cliffhanger, how it was left. It's like I say, I only watched it last night, and it's what's going to happen next. So I do want to know, but I don't. The flash of light, obviously, that's new to me. I'm thinking, okay, could it be Q? But then again, we've just had Q. Could it be this? Could it be that? Could it be some sort of anomaly, some sort of phenomena? Yeah, it's a little dull as well. I have absolutely no idea. I have complete faith in Terry Matalas and everybody else who's working on this. And so I'm certain they're not going to drop the ball anytime soon. I can't wait till Friday night is when I watch this show. So I can't wait to see the next one.
Kyle?
Kevin, just real quick for Dan's sake, because Dan is here. That flash of light is actually a blue police box appearing before the Titan.
Nice. Haley, your final thoughts on this episode of 17 Seconds.
Yeah, this was.
By the way, just real quick, I didn't directly ask you what you think is going to happen next, because I know you're going to tell us and spoil everything. So just give us your thoughts on this episode.
No, I think this was a fantastic episode. I really enjoyed it. It's interesting. Like the first episode almost now is like a slow burn compared to these last two, where it pulled you in and you were like, okay, I'm down for this ride. It's like you're on the on-ramp onto the freeway, so like you're getting there, and then episode 2 is like you're on the freeway, but you're not quite at the speed. And then this episode, it's like, okay, now we've hit full speed on the freeway, and now we are just blasting down that road and to get to our destination. And so it's going to be a fantastic journey. I'm super excited to see where this goes. I can't wait for LeVar to join on, just because I'm Team Geordi. So I'm really excited for when he gets to come in. That will be super ecstatic for me. And I think I've already said it. I think this nebula is going to save them. I think there's something in this nebula that is going to save the Titan, because obviously no one else is coming to their rescue. No one knows. They didn't get a signal off, so no other ship can come in and save the day. But I think somehow this nebula is going to do that.
Damn, Haley, now I really want that to happen. That would be really, really cool. All right, guys, let's go ahead and let's get into some subspace signals, and let's close things out here. All right, guys, this is the Union Federation podcast on the Fandom Podcast Network. We've joined up with BQN and our friends over there with a lot of great Star Trek stuff going on. Make sure you check them out. And of course, Amy, a host of a couple of these shows here, All Good Things in Galaxy's Class. But we also got Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network. Dan, tell us a little bit about your show and where they can reach you.
Well, we talk about all things in time and space, or space and time, in this exciting 60th anniversary year for Doctor Who. We're in the year of the 14th Doctor. It's not going to last too long. There's a 15th Doctor coming pretty quickly along the way. So we're getting stuck into all of that speculating. God, we are speculating on that. Speculating about what's to come in the anniversary specials and everything next year, and celebrating classic Doctor Who and new Doctor Who on every edition of that show. We've got some great guests, some deep-ish, informed, kind of, now and again, funny reviews, and whatever else I can put together, whoever I can wrangle into the TARDIS. So go and find us at type40.podbean.com or on the Fandom Podcast Network sensational master feed.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan, and appreciate you coming on as well.
Pleasure.
First of all, you can find the Fandom Podcast Network on YouTube. If you're watching this, thank you. If you're listening to this, go and watch it, because we have some fun slides we've been showing, and we're putting all of our shows on YouTube, and please share us out. We appreciate that. Our master feed for all of our audio podcasts are fpnet.podbean.com. And also, if you're a fan of Star Trek and the Orville, we have a wonderful Facebook group, the Union Federation, a Star Trek and Orville Facebook group. Make sure you check that out. Please give us some love on whatever major podcast platforms you are. Give us some reviews. You can email us directly at unionfederation@gmail.com. My name is Kevin. I am on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_Phoenix. Kyle, where can we find you?
You can find me floating around the Twitterverse at AKyleW, or on Instagram at AKyleFandom, or just generally, I'm pretty much everywhere on the Fandom Podcast Network. So
awesome. And Haley, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter. I am at Trekkie01D, and I'm also in our Facebook group, lurking in the corner, but not the P corner.
The P corner thing is never ever going to die. I think we just need to accept this fact.
Dan, you are watching the Orville, right?
P corner. I am watching the Orville. Right. It's not on, is it? Is it still on?
It's on our Disney Plus. I don't know how you're watching it, but there's reference to a P corner in season 2.
Oh, okay. Oh no, it must have passed me. But yeah, I did watch it. I really like the Orville. I don't know whether they're going to be any more of that, but yeah, I totally forgot that. No. Sorry.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, exactly.
Shout out to Amy. She'll be back here discussing PICARD very soon. You can find her at Miss Amy Nelson on Twitter. And also, please check out the BQN. And they also have the BQN Facebook group as well. Anyway, I want to thank everyone for joining us for this week's episode of Union Federation, discussing Star Trek PICARD Season 3, Episode 3. Thank you guys so much. And until next time, we will see you later. Hailing frequencies are now closed.